Welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. Tonight we have a couple of items for you. Sexual health piece on a new penis ring, the first ever wearable erection tracker. Case of an Arizona male nurse getting a slap on the wrist plea deal in the case of raping a comatose patient, and a horrific piece about a woman being raped on a Philadelphia SEPTA train while bystanders stood by and did nothing. So, welcome back, my brother.
Welcome back to you.
This is
thank you all for joining us.
Strange handful of cases here, right?
Indeed.
Start with the happier of the three.
Yeah, this is actually kind of cool.
It is, and it's only a matter of time, right? With all of these watches and rings and all these biometrics, with all these fancy electronics that people are wearing and tracking, and sleep measurements and cardiac measurements. It's only been a matter of time before we saw the 21st century equivalent of what doctors and sexual medicine providers and sex therapists used to prescribe: a roll of stamps, right?
Now, for those of you who are young, we used to pick up pens and we used to write words on paper. And the way we would get those words to somebody else, we would fold it up, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it,
was like
and
money
then mail it.
For the mail.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for translating for our Gen Z and millennial viewers. Seriously, to test for ED, one of the measures is nocturnal tumescence, right? Guys get erections regularly while we sleep. That's part of normal physiology.
After every dream state, we'll get a surge of testosterone and we'll get an erection.
Right. So in order to conclusively diagnose erectile dysfunction, what they used to do is tell a guy to take some stamps and lick them. You know, they had glue on the back before they came pre-glued, and just put some stamps around your penis and go to sleep. And then if you wake up in the morning, if the stamps were broken, you knew you had an erection. If they were still glued, you knew you didn't, right? So now, forget all that old school nonsense. This is electronic tracking. And I think it's pretty awesome because the amount of biometrics that can be downloaded from something you wear on your finger or on your wrist, it's remarkable. So why not? One thing that comes to mind is what took so long.
Yeah, although again, I think once they develop the technology, they've been moving pretty quickly on that. I'm waiting for the next step will be put that in a condom.
Well,
right? So, while wearing a condom in the middle of having intercourse, you might say, go a little faster, you need a little bit more blood, increase the pressure a little bit.
It's a very, very interesting. I've struggled for a long time as a sex therapist between the distinction between mindfulness, which has become very popular in the field over the last dozen years, and what sex therapists have always called spectatoring.
Right.
When you're like standing at the edge of the bed criticizing your own sexual performance.
Right, exactly.
And guys do that.
Most people do that.
But all of the women that think that guys are just all horny and thinking about having sex any chance they can get should realize more that what comes up next to the, oh, goody, goody, we get to have sex is the, all right, we're on. And every sexual encounter is a test of masculinity, virility, stamina, performance, big enough, last long enough, not too quick, right? All of this.
And just to be
guys
clear,
are working.
it's not that it is. What he's saying is that this is the way a lot of guys think. So it becomes a part of it for them.
So too many guys are working too hard. Well, they're working more than
they're working.
Playing,
they're not playing.
Sex is supposed to be fun and pleasurable and, that more childlike than any kind of pressure to perform, or it's not supposed to be work. I like saying even sex work, it's only sex work if you're getting paid for it, and even sex workers should enjoy the sex they're having.
That's right.
Should be allowed to, right?
That's right.
But this also connects more to the medical piece, right? Because as we've taught for many years, ED is not just that psychological psych out. Oh my God, we have often told younger guys the surest way to lose an erection is to worry about losing your erection. But for guys our age, very often ED is the first sign of the beginnings of cardiac disease.
That's right.
So when we see a guy
That's right.
that's in mid-50s, late 50s, early 60s, complaining of ED, we want to get him physically worked up before, in addition to talking about the relationship and is it all the time or just, like the guy that says, I don't know, every time I try and have intercourse with my wife and I lose my erection. It never happens with my secretary.
That's right.
That's a different.
That's
it's a different cause,
that's not right. We would say that's
But
not physical.
Guys that even lose their erections by themselves, or
Yeah.
say that they don't remember waking up with morning erections in a long time, you need to get to a cardiologist
Right.
and have a thorough workup because the tiny blood vessels in the penis, if they're getting blocked up and affecting blood flow, just it's definitely happening in the much bigger blood vessels
That's right.
in the heart.
Right. And we've talked about that a lot too. So again, this is part of our little soapbox that erectile dysfunction, especially in guys over 50, could be that proverbial canary in the coal mine.
Right.
For cardiovascular disease.
Again, you want to explain that reference to anyone?
Oh
under
yeah, I'm
70?
sorry for your, for those of you under 70. That used to
Google-
be coal miners. Yeah,
Google knows.
Google it.
Yeah.
Google it.
This is just one of many of these kind of disgusting cases we hear about too often. It's like life imitating art, right? That scene
really
in Kill
is.
Bill when Uma Thurman was in a coma.
Yeah.
A male nurse in Arizona, I don't know why we still say male nurse,
Right.
basically just got a slap on the wrist after impregnating a woman, doesn't say comatose, but a woman that was incapacitated for roughly 3 years
Right.
in a long-term care facility. And what did you say? An orderly discovered that she was in the midst of...
Or in aid, yeah. And this is like, this isn't going on apparently for like 3 years. And she was just changing the underwear in this woman who essentially was in a coma. And as she was changing her underwear, she saw a head crowning. Nobody knew. Nobody noticed anything. Now, granted, we've talked before, and we know that there's not all pregnancies are so obvious. If somebody obviously has been in a coma, nobody's really checking her that closely. But come on, 9 months of a pregnancy, and it's a baby coming out that is your first indication. So I think that says a lot about the care in that particular facility as well. But what does it also say about these guys that are so opportunistic?
I was going to say, I hate to be pessimistic and think that this is an isolated event, but I'd have to think that it happens more often. This guy knocked someone up, but I'm sure that doesn't happen as often as sexual abuse in these kind of facilities.
Right, exactly.
I'm really sad to say.
Exactly.
And like I said, it even showed up in a Tarantino movie. So go figure.
That's right. So, and again, this is not the first case of its kind.
So, yeah.
There's another lawsuit. I think that even in the beginning, then when we first started, we kind of reported on where it was a woman who's been in a coma for essentially 6 or 7 years that now all of a sudden is pregnant. Right?
Yeah.
No need to figure that one out.
Right. She snapped up out of the coma in a trance and went on a sex spree.
So I think that it really more than anything I think speaks to how the systems that are taking care of people, including our elderly people, people who cannot take care of themselves, have a great responsibility that they're often not living up to. We saw this with COVID in a lot of nursing homes. We've seen this after hurricanes and other disasters. And when are we going to step up on that? And that's over and above the issue of teaching males to not be so opportunistic.
Right. Of course.
Just because you can get away with it doesn't mean you should do it.
Whether you're working the night shift in a facility or on a date.
Exactly.
Right.
No different.
Absolutely. And, on the same subject, this, as the headline of this piece says, I couldn't pick a better word, horrific. A woman was reportedly raped on a Philadelphia train.
And it's happened over this past weekend.
Not in an abandoned car.
No.
But a train car with other riders who apparently sat there and did nothing.
Well, they pointed their phones. Apparently, they pointed their phones at it and were recording it and were looking at it, but nobody called 911. Nobody
Wow.
stepped in to try to stop it, and apparently this went on for a long time on that ride, where he was molesting her, he was harassing her, and then eventually got around to raping her. And in all of this is on a subway train.
On they come out in West Philly on the street, right? So a streetcar. Out in West Philly, an employee, folks in the area know from SEPTA, Southeast Pennsylvania Transport Authority, an employee was in the vicinity, called the police finally that, quote, something wasn't right with a woman aboard the train. And then finally police at the next stop found the woman and arrested a man.
Right. But again, all of those people who saw this.
I don't know how you sit on a train and even hear something that you think sounds like someone being assaulted and sit there, especially with everybody and their sister having a phone.
Right. Okay, and I understand the reticence of people to step in. Right? There is this sort of bystander phenomena. People do not like to get involved unless they see somebody else. It's kind of like a buffet.
Yeah.
You know, no one wants to be the first one to cut into the food kind of thing. But call 911.
Yeah.
If you're
You
not going
don't
to
have
step in
to
and do
step
anything,
in.
you're on your phone already.
It's
you're
a
filming
passive
this
thing to call 911. You don't have to get
That-
involved in
that
any
to me
way.
is the most mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It really is. So, way to go, people of Philadelphia there.
We should be better. Right? That what, my
Yep.
second home, third home, fourth? Well, a city near and dear to me.
Yes, indeed.
Should be better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For our final piece here, as we like to do a couple of things. Last week, if you tuned in, we did our WTF segment, and we like to alternate WTF with what we call Poetic Justice. And what is our Poetic Justice?
Never a shortage of these, right?
Uh-huh.
It's just this stuff. I think the journalists, it's too easy for them. It writes
It is.
itself.
But we like to call out with this hypocrisy, sexual hypocrisy in particular. People taking one stance, making a claim, and then all of a sudden something else. Like we've talked before about
Like
politicians
getting caught
exactly.
with their pants down.
That's
so
right.
here we have an FBI child sex investigator, child sex crime investigator, charged with child sex crimes in 3 different states. So our honoree,
Yes.
sarcastically awarded tonight
Yes,
is
to David Harris.
Louisiana investigator who charges 1 count each of aggravated crimes against nature. Oh, you know those red states love those crimes against nature. And indecent behavior with a juvenile. I don't mean to make light of that. And Texas authorities are charging him with exposing himself to 2 teenage girls on numerous occasions, according to reports. And Florida.
Which, by the way, those 2 girls in Texas were girls. He was having an affair with their mother. Right? So he had a kind
can't
of
write this stuff.
built-in audience there.
Florida's also issued arrest warrants for Mr. Harris regarding indecent exposure from a 2019 incident while he was on vacation, of course. Right? Come to Florida and recommit your crimes.
Right. So 3 different states this guy was charged with. Criminal acts involving both adults and juvenile victims that go back to 2016. Right? 3 different states. And I think it's important also to point out that his most recent position with the FBI, now while he was in the military, he's got a long military history. He was even a consultant for sex crimes. He was a consultant with the FBI, and his most recent position was working with the FBI's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force.
Yeah.
Right? So this is the guy that's molesting children.
And his job is to investigate sexual crimes against
children. So for such overt, and as far as hypocrisies go, a beautiful one. Former FBI investigator David Harris, we give you our this week's Poetic Justice, and along with that comes our traditional salute. So we salute you. And that will do it.
See you next Sunday for more Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers.